now going to go into the panel session, challenges and opportunities in the cloud core. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to kick off with one question, and then we'll just open it up to the audience. Okay? So, we'll start with Petr, because you're holding the, yeah. I keep it very simple, and then we'll dive with one way or the other. So, what will be the most significant impact of programmable telecoms? And when I use that definition, I mean it in its broadest sense. So all the aspects that we've talked about over the past 2 days on telcos in 2019, 2020. This is just your personal view. I'm not asking for company views. I'm just asking for your personal view. When we look at this space, what's going to be the most significant impact for telcos? Petr.
I think I will just continue the flow of the slides and flow ideas that I have working in a region like the Middle East. So what we're definitely considering that the Middle East was a bit of closed region for a while in terms of the adoption of voice over IP technologies. We see the heavily going liberalization in Saudi, in other countries in the Gulf, where the voice over IP becoming the standard and open technology. We expect also some liberalization could come in UAE as well, and because the market was lacking that kind of technologies, we see the very big hunger, and we see the tremendous number of use cases that are available right now for their CPaaS adoption, and for us as Etisalat, there just being able to fulfill them is already the exciting journey and the very interesting opportunities for the upcoming year.
Excellent, thank you so much. And it's a breath of fresh air in listening to you from my previous experiences with Etisalat. So really looking forward to seeing what happens with your deployments. We'll move to you, James, because I know you're eager to talk.
Absolutely, as ever. So the big change is that the operators, the MNOs, are going to have to deal with is that they are no longer in control of the complete ecosystem. And they were, but they're now not, because all of this cloud-based layer that sits on top allows other people to get in there as well.
Yes.
And the MNOs just can't control it all. They can't contain it. So what they've got to realize is that they've got to work with other people and be content with making a component of the revenue, but they certainly won't be able to control it.
Yeah, no, that's a very good point.
So I think we see two things, and one thing is optimization happening, still rather than innovation. I think I see that as well. So it's a lot of optimization, improving workflows, and the other thing is trying to get back pieces of the value chain that they didn't own before. So making, instead of going you mentioned it actually, not going into volume only, but also session-based pricing, event-based pricing, maybe even outcome-based pricing. I don't know. But this is partially, so a discussion I'm in, Dean is going to laugh, is partially triggered a bit about RCS as well, because essentially what you do there is, of course, you put in the channel, but essentially, like for RCS, but that's not where the value is. I think the value is essentially going to be more on top, supporting sessions, putting AI in there, making, solving use cases for your customers, maybe getting in the aggregator business as well. And I think it's going to be discussed. I don't know what's going to be done if it has really an impact, but at least from the perspective I'm taking in now, I see a lot of things happening in this area. So.
Excellent, Greg.
So I can share a topic from the European perspective, not UK. From the continent part. So actually European Union is not helping operators, but at some point regulation gives a chance to grow, and the MiFID regulation, which is about co-recording, is something what allows telcos to build B2B CPaaS UCaaS, whatever you call it, solution, and then enterprises, knowing that telco is trusted partner, like DT, Orange, whatever, and so they trust them, they can shift their assets to telco. And co-recording is one of the topic. It's really hot right now, at least at Polish market and the market other markets which I know it's really hot. And and it could be the first one, and then the rest of the communication asset can be shifted to telco. And this is chance for them,
Cool.
opportunity.
Over to you, Yusuf.
Thank you very much. I have to agree with James on the fact that it's going to help us transform from being centralized controlling entities to becoming ecosystem players. It's particularly important in Africa, where we're trying to create businesses and thereby create jobs. I think this helps us solve yet another huge problem. So this move towards APIs and microservices also helps operators experiment. It became really expensive to experiment at one stage, where we were paying big telco providers for huge platforms and learning expensive lessons in the market when things fail. Using open source, using microservices helps us to experiment at a smaller scale and learn lessons quickly, and to learn with partners in the ecosystem at the same time.
Perfect. Thank you, Yusuf. And Werner.
Yeah, well said, all of you. I think prediction is one thing, but I think I hope that some of the examples we've seen here today and yesterday will bring more appetite for trying new things, innovate, and see that there's actually possible to add value to what they already do. And I think now is a good time for operators to get into the game. There's lots of opportunities there, and I think we have some good proof points. So that is what I hope will happen.
Yeah, plus some very good things on what to avoid. I think the lessons learned are more important than some of the opportunities in terms of actually realizing them, because these are words we've said for decades now about new services, innovation, and generally it's just been lip service by certain people to keep themselves in jobs, while they've actually done a very good job on squashing innovation whenever it actually sort of reared its head. But I'm just bitter and twisted on the whole thing. Moving, any questions from the audience for Peter for his presentation, for the presentations from any of the other panelists all around this topic? I thought Dean was about to raise his hand. There you go. He has to be first. I remember there was one guy, Bob Emerson, he was a writer, and once he put his hand up and said, "I don't have a question, I just wanted to be the first question before Dean."
I'm curious what the panel think about MVNOs and mobile virtual operators and the sort of the wholesale model. Whether the opportunities here are for sort of developers creating applications, or it's for developers essentially running their own wholesale networks based on a wholesale deal of one form or another.
I want to do it.
You want to do it first? Yeah, it's really difficult to make money as an MVNO these days. But I think we're going to see a new kind of MVNO, but working the other way, where people are going to be deploying their own radio access and then having other operators roam onto them. So it's kind of like an MVNO, but kind of working the other way.
I have actually heard the term reverse MVNO a couple of times recently.
Yeah. And we're going to see quite a lot of that as we move into the 5G era, because cell sizes in 5G are going to get a lot smaller. And so the old carrier model of having a reasonably small contained number of big masts really doesn't work in 5G. You're going to have to have many, many more small cells to cover the ground. And there's no way that the big MNOs can afford to deploy all of those. And even if they did, they wouldn't be able to pay for them because they're MNOs. People want to get their ground rent and things off them. And so the model just doesn't work. So what we're going to see is a whole load of privately owned 5G cells, I think, which gives a kind of reverse MVNO type opportunity. Werner, you want to say something?
Yeah, I think we've seen some examples of the ability to actually set up a full stack in the open source or by someone is within reach for more kinds of companies. So I think you could see governmental agencies want to become an MVNO to serve their own needs. Big companies could do that themselves, combining that with maybe coverage locally in their facilities. So I think there will be, hopefully, there will be a wide range of operators, MVNOs alike, that can solve, verticals. That's the out of reach at the moment.
And don't forget network slicing, lots of it.
Thanks for this question. I can share some thoughts. I've been last week at MVNO Europe in London, and it was actually the question about what is the near future or maybe long-term future for MVNOs, and so definitely they cannot beat MNOs about prices. Doesn't work at all. The margin is really small, and so they were talking a lot about how to use this modern new technology, blockchain, to be more lean, even like to leverage that. The other topic is about differentiating, and so from MVNO perspective, it's about how to differentiate, how to add value on top of base offering, like integrating with offering with insurance, finance, different use cases which are targeted for niche markets. This is more or less the idea, and also for travelers. So this is the offer which works well, and everyone is traveling and would like to have cheap data wherever he is.
Yeah, and just to back end on that, I think the only way that you can make it work is if you are a heavy MVNO, therefore running your own SIM cards, running your own authentication, thereby being in the signaling stream so you can build clever stuff on top. If you're a light MVNO, just taking operators, MNO SIM cards, you can forget it.
Yeah.
You can't compete.
Yeah, absolutely. Any other questions from the audience to the panelists? If not, I'll just quickly wrap up with one question. If we look 10 years out, I'm not talking about, all the new carriers we're going to see, but what will the traditional carriers that we know and love and hate in both the fixed and the mobile space? I'm not, and it's all converging anyway, so it's a mute line between the two. What are they going to look like in 10 years' time? Will it be the same?
So if I know that, I will be really rich. But frankly speaking, my personal opinion is like it will blend. So of course there will be service providers still. The most important is to understand that they have customer base, and this is the biggest asset which they have. They have, of course, huge cost behind, like right now they have to build whole 5G technology, which will cost a lot, and they have to have ROI based on that.
They don't need to build 5G, I'm happy with 4G.
Yeah, but this is huge hype. I don't know that it will happen next year. Definitely few trials. It's marketing, purely marketing right now. So far for us, 4G is enough. Once the technology will require that, it will happen. But the question is what kind of the services they will offer. Base services, yes, but they will offer other type of services which they can sell to customer base. Again, differentiating, merging with different markets and so on.
Okay, so we'll keep it quick, so just move down the line, okay?
I think you see a lot of things being decoupled that are now being sold together. So you will have providers for access. You may be able to choose your service on top. I think they will also still probably be in the communication business, but completely different. So we will maybe provide infrastructures. We have, telehouses all over the world. So we may provide local breakouts. We may provide local media termination, even for current, let's say, internet companies, because we can run these effectively, and it will essentially Yeah, and the voice part will be separated between pure access and then VAS providers on top. So you will not have a carrier providing value-added service for base telephony. Maybe they will provide a base communication service or the minimum set that's being regulated, but all the rest needs to be exposed, maybe even by law. And you will have VAS providers sitting on top of that, actually dealing with the experiences.
Yeah, I think big MNOs are going to be around for some time yet. There are certain functions they're really good at, like centralized billing. The big MNOs run billing like no one else on the planet. They're really, really good at it. In fact, it's the only thing that they've got left because they've outsourced just about everything else. But there's going to be a whole load of other stuff going on as well. And I think we've seen with Sebastian's experience that they're not very good at doing really new stuff. And
Well, not if it touches a core service.
well, no, that's the problem. Anything that comes in that threatens a core service or revenue stream is going to be immediately killed.
Well,
it's
an organisation. It's full of antibodies.
Yeah, exactly. And if you're antibodies, in fact.
I'm sure at BT there are a ton of them.
Yeah, but just wait until we get blockchain on SIM cards, then we see what happens.
I'm interested to hear from Etisalat and MTN, because one of the things that, from my perspective, given all the operators I work with around the world, is we'll see a lot of fragmentation. So operators in different markets being very different in the next 10 years. So, Peter.
Yeah, I mean, I would a little bit agree and disagree with the previously said things. So I mean, the first, I definitely agree that one of the most significant asset is a customer base and customer relations. And I mean, to addition to MTN experience, I also can say that Etisalat brand is considered to be the most valuable brand in the Middle East, going above the Mercedes and above the Coca-Cola. So this is the telco brand, and telco relations is very, very valuable by the customers. And I mean, in the long run, we as a marketing organization inside the telco, we see that definitely everything is going flat rate, everything is going to be bundled, and the core telecom services will be purely bundled, and our ambition is to pile on top with the value-added services, which is now the whole ICT stack. And for many customers, telco is still a good one-stop shop for their significant portion of their need. And here is question: how agile are we to really deliver?
Good point. Thank you, Peter.
Yeah, so for the operators that are still around in 10 years' time, I think it's the ones that are going to be, really good at being platform players and being ecosystem players. And I definitely think the trust relationship we have with our customers is what's going to hold us, what's going to keep us around. I think if we can leverage that and some of the core capabilities like identity management that we currently have, then perhaps we'll still be a player in the ecosystem, or significant player in the ecosystem. I don't think we're going to be holding on to the infrastructure and radio access network for a lot longer either, to be honest. I think somebody mentioned Amber Mesh Network yesterday. There's lots of projects like that coming up. The capability that's being pushed into handsets, at some point in time we're going to be able to run wireless mesh networks that don't really require big towers anymore. So even that will probably disappear one day.
Yeah, because I sort of look at, MTN South Africa, MTN Nigeria in 10 years' time will look like very different businesses if we look over and say Vodafone UK. I think that segmentation, that differentiation, how they operate their business, their position in the respective countries and the ecosystems, I think is going to be quite stark. So yeah, it's a very good point you're raising there. Then we'll just wrap up with you, Werner.
Okay. Perhaps RCS will be implemented in the industry. Well,
it is already. There's millions of users. What's wrong with you? Everybody's using it. It's just you don't realize.
I'm sorry. No, I don't know. I haven't seen that. No, I think we will see lots of different flavors of operators going forward. The verticals, I think, maybe Mercedes will be some kind of a service provider to enhance their other products. Maybe even Coca-Cola, I don't know, talking about brands and so on. But I still think spectrum is important. There's regulatory things and they're auctioned and so on, so that is a value. And I guess it's going to still be fairly expensive, and operators need to maximize, the utilization of that resource, and maybe that will open up for more players in the future.
Yeah, that's a very good point in terms of how they utilize those assets, because they've got to invest it as a state-granted, oligopoly. Yeah. So it's not going away, but it's how that gets divvied up in each of the countries, I think, is going to be very interesting. So, Adam, we've baited you long enough.
Actually, it's a different observation. This is because there's a lot of pull coming from open source and applications and APIs, but there's going to be some push as well. Because if we're going out 10 years, if you look at the vendors that the carriers use, both at the network level and the systems level, and you look forward to how many of those are still going to be in business in 10 years' time, in some form that they have now, and look at their agility in the ability to create meaningful customer experiences. There's going to be a big void there that whether they like it or not, the MNOs and the fixed operators are going to have to move into this space. So as well as the attractive pull for new operations, there's going to be some push coming from that side as well, and lots of consolidation that's going to cause some big disruptions over that period. So good, keep writing the code, guys, because we're going to need it.
Because that's a very good point, because, one of the other alternative futures is they have the network access that's granted by the government, whether it's fixed, whether it's mobile, and they just become local access providers for Amazon and Google, is one of the alternative futures. But anyway, what I'd like to do now is draw a line under the panel. So let's thank the panelists for an excellent discussion.